I look at all these dots and I see a huge problem.
The space around Earth is getting pretty crowded. There are nearly 3,000 active satellites circling above our heads in Earth orbit, and we're tracking more than 20,000 pieces of debris at all times. Moriba Jah is a scientist on a mission to track all the things flying above our heads. He built a massive visualizer to show what could happen as crucial orbits turn into a massive pileup.
There's nothing you can do. Anything that is red, your strategy is hope. Welcome to the saucer, the Space Object Situation Room.
Projected on the screen is Astrograph. It's a visualizer built by Moriba, and it shows the locations of all the things we're currently tracking in space, from active satellites to unknown material.
It really does make it look like there's a lot of crap, for lack of a better term, around Earth. So walk me through what we're seeing here.
So what you're seeing here is opinions about these about 26,000 objects ranging in size from the cell phone all the way to the space station in different orbits.
Satellites operate in various orbits, basically highways that zoom around Earth. Different types of satellites orbit on different highways.
The one that you can very much see is this geostationary highway. It takes about 24 hours for a satellite to go around its orbit once there. So the geostationary highway is where we put communication satellites. So that means that, if you want direct TV, you don't have to touch your dish. You just point it at a specific place in the sky and you're going to acquire the signal. You can also see some things in low Earth orbit. One of them is, these strings of pearls that you see right here, and the other one like right here. These are Starlink satellites that SpaceX has launched for global internet. Pretty much anything in yellow is stuff that's working. Stuff that's cyan are things that used to work but died, and so they're still up there moving around at very high speeds.
To get the positions of all these satellites, Astrograph draws on tracking information from numerous sources. That leads to multiple different opinions about where the satellite actually is. Estimates can differ by a couple football fields.
We hear about these collision warnings all the time. We see it in the news. Watch out, over Pittsburgh, these things are going to cross. So the question is, it's going to collide based on whose opinion? Like, this is one object with 4 different opinions. If I say move out of the way of which one? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
With the amount of stuff increasing in space, and a lack of consensus on where everything is, the potential for collisions has gone up.
This is an application that pulls information from Astrograph to basically say, out of about 20,000 objects, choose any 2 of these and tell me, will these things come within 6 miles of each other within the next 20 minutes? And if the answer is yes, show me. The thing is, if you're noticing any sort of traffic here, it's already too late to do anything.
Oh, wow. So if there's a collision coming up and I see it here, it might have already
too
happened.
Late.
Let's talk about the consequences of an actual collision.
Whenever things collide or whenever things explode, they go from 2 things to thousands of things. Unfortunately, all of these objects, all these dots that you see there, came from one, what I call super spreader event, which is a rocket body that exploded less than 2 years ago. And so one event generated all this junk, which unfortunately will be crisscrossing this geostationary highway.
Do you have a sense of how much these conjunction warnings have increased over the last few years?
Yeah, so I will say that just in my own experience, I have seen a doubling of these conjunctions just due to the fact that we have things like the Starlinks on orbit right now.
Starlink is SpaceX's ambitious project to place nearly 12,000 internet satellites into low to medium Earth orbit. The company has been launching about 60 satellites every month or so, and other companies like OneWeb and Amazon have their own plans for huge satellite constellations.
There's about 3,000 things that are working. Elon's Starlinks alone are about 800 of those.
So that increased the amount of active satellites
Absolutely.
by such a high percentage.
Yeah, and it's just going to continue.
An idea that often comes up when talking about space junk is the Kessler syndrome. The idea that at some point, there will be too much stuff in space, triggering a runaway cascade of collisions. Orbits would become permanently unusable. Moriba doesn't see that future. He thinks that if collisions get out of hand, we could hit pause on new launches and eventually, new collisions would taper off.
So the thing is, if we didn't launch things every few weeks and we just left Mother Nature alone, we would reach an equilibrium state.
But he believes that the orbits up there still have their limits.
What is the biggest danger when it comes to the crowding in space?
So the biggest danger is that, just like with any ecosystem, there is a finite capacity, carrying capacity of the ecosystem. The biggest danger is that we exceed the carrying capacity of any given orbital highway, and then we can't use it anymore.
For now, there are no rules in place to stop a country from launching more and more and more. Lots of researchers and companies have proposed ways of cleaning up Earth orbit, using tools like harpoons, magnets, nets, and more. But Moriba thinks a long-term solution has to include limits.
It would be interesting if we could come up with this carrying capacity and have some entity, maybe the United Nations, saying, hey, you can lease this much capacity. At the end, you have to dispose of your satellites to give that capacity back to the environment.
But to really have a harmonious relationship with space, countries and companies may need to start thinking in terms of conservation. Orbit may not be a living ecosystem, but it's still fragile.
The way you talk about space really makes it feel like the way we talk about public lands, public parks. What kind of lessons could we take from the environmentalist movement or indigenous cultures to better serve our space environment?
So very interestingly, Lauren, there are pockets of indigenous people around the globe that over tens of thousands of years, they've come up with principles for how to live sustainably because their lives depended on it. The Aborigines, the Inuit, and some of the principles are like this, right? Like one of them is understand the relationships between things in an environment before you start making decisions and acting. If we're pumping all these satellites into Earth orbit very frequently, we don't give the environment enough time to give us feedback on the unintended consequences of our actions.
Thank you to Lexus for their support. Be sure to check out the new 2021 Lexus IS by going to lexus.com/IS. Their campaign is about going all in on your passion and getting a greater reward, which is why they sponsored this series on researchers and innovators. They don't influence our editorial, but they do help make productions like this viable. So thanks again to them, and thank you for watching.